If you want to learn how to actually shop for high quality clothing, then keep watching. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and it's how to actually shop for high quality clothing. So today I will be sharing what I look for and what I avoid when I'm shopping. And I've gathered all of these tips from my own experience, but also from some of my favorite content creators, which I will leave linked down below. Now, before we start, there are a couple of things that you need to consider. One is that a high price doesn't equal high quality. Take, for example, this sweater that I bought from Polo Ralph Lauren a couple of years ago. This is made from a blend of wool and cashmere, and in theory, that's great, but this sweater peels like crazy. The peeling is so bad that I actually have to depeel it after every wear. And this sweater was not cheap by any means. It cost around $200 when I bought it, and I've had sweaters that cost a fraction of the price and they don't peel nearly as much. The second thing is, do not trust a brand blindly. Just because you bought a high quality piece from one brand doesn't mean that all the pieces that this brand produce are going to be high quality. At least I find that that's the case for most of the brands that I shop for. I think that some pieces can be a total hit, while others are totally a miss. Now, when it comes to assessing the quality, there are two main things I focus on. One is the composition, and two is the construction of the garment. When it comes to composition, make sure to always check the garment tag when you buy an item. In general terms, there are three main types of fabrics: synthetics, semi-synthetics, and natural fibers, and each of these has their pros and cons. But personally, I prefer to opt for natural fibers for most of my clothing, except for sportswear. And I do this because natural fabrics like cotton, linen, silk, and wool, they are not only breathable, odor-resistant, and biodegradable, they just look better. However, while choosing a natural fabric is a good starting point, this doesn't guarantee high quality, especially when it comes to fast fashion, where you can find pieces made from 100% cotton that start falling apart after just a few wears. Some fabrics that I love are linen, cotton, merino wool, cashmere, and alpaca. And when it comes to linen, I find it very tricky to find good quality linen, especially in the high street. You will find that most of the linen pieces are made from a very thin fabric, which is oftentimes sheer, and it also creases like crazy. And while linen obviously is going to crease because that's the nature of the fabric, a good quality linen won't crease as much. So when you're looking for linen, look for fabrics that have some weight to it. The fabric shouldn't be extremely thin. It actually should be a bit thicker and also softer, and it shouldn't be sheer unless it's meant to be sheer. Moving on to cotton. When you're looking for good quality cotton, look for a fabric that's thicker and that has some weight to it, and it also shouldn't be sheer unless it's meant to be sheer by design. Take as an example these two t-shirts that I got from Uniqlo. Both are made from 100% cotton, but you can notice that one of them is higher quality than the other. This first t-shirt is made from a very thin and flimsy fabric, and you can already see that the neckline is misshapen. However, the second t-shirt, which is part from the Uniqlo U collection, has a much more thicker and softer fabric that has a better drape, and you can also see that the neckline has a better construction. Moving on to one of my personal favorites, we have Merino Wool. And I love this fabric because it's not only soft, it's also odor resistant, but it's also much more durable and is not as expensive as other fabrics like cashmere. When looking for merino wool pieces, make sure that the fabric is soft. A high quality merino wool should feel soft and not scratchy. And make sure to avoid pieces that already show signs of peeling in store. This is definitely a sign of bad quality. If you want to go even more specific, one of the things that you can consider is the fabric diameter, which is measured in microns. The higher the diameter, the coarser the fabric is. So if you're looking for something softer, you should opt for a superfine or ultrafine merino wool. Moving on to alpaca, which is probably my favorite fabric. However, I find it very difficult to find good quality pieces made from alpaca wool where I live. Sadly, unless you're willing to pay a very high price, I've noticed that most of the brands that produce pieces made from alpaca wool often blend it with synthetics like polyamide to one, strengthen the fabric, but also to make them more affordable. That's why I only shop for alpaca pieces when I visit my home country, which is Peru. And in case you didn't know, Peru is one of the largest producers of alpaca wool in the world. And we have a lot of brands that produce high quality pieces at more affordable prices. When I shop for these pieces, I always look for baby alpaca or alpaca suri. And when it comes to a blend, I look for pieces that are blended with either merino wool or silk. And I will leave some of my favorite Peruvian brands that ship internationally linked down below, so make sure to check the description box. Next we have cashmere, and this is definitely pricier, so I don't shop for these pieces very frequently. The best cashmere pieces are made from long, fine fibers, and you should avoid pieces that have premature peeling. Also, watch out for low-cost versions. These pieces are often made in high-volume factories using inferior raw materials. This means that they are made from very short and coarse fabrics, and they are often treated with some sort of chemical or washed multiple times in order for them to be soft. Now, what about fabric blends? You have probably seen that some brands mix synthetic fibers like polyamide or polyester with natural fabrics like wool in their knitwear and coats. Personally, I tend to avoid synthetics in my knitwear and in my coats. However, depending on the price point, some people are okay with up to 20% of synthetics in the composition, especially when it comes to more delicate fabrics like alpaca or mohair, where the synthetic fibers are added to strengthen the fabric but also to make the pieces more affordable. However, this doesn't have to be the case. You can actually strengthen these more delicate fabrics with other natural fabrics like wool or silk, which is my personal preference. Now, beyond the composition, the way how a garment is constructed actually plays a huge role in the durability and the overall quality of a piece. So when you're inspecting the construction of a piece, there are a few things that you need to consider. First is to avoid fake details, and I'm referring specifically to non-functional buttons or fake pockets. These are a clear sign of cutting cost, and brands that produce high quality pieces don't skimp on these details. Now, when it comes to the stitching, always make sure it's even and straight and that there are no loose threads. And also make sure to check the inside seams, because that is one place where brands tend to skimp. The seams on the inside should also be neat and even, and you should avoid raw edges. Good quality pieces often have bias-bound seams, which prevent fraying and also make the pieces last longer. When it comes to the lining, you should ideally look for materials like silk, but viscose is also a more affordable alternative. The lining should fit smoothly, so there should always be a bit of extra material to prevent pulling, but it shouldn't be excessive. When it comes to buttons, more premium brands will often include buttons made from natural materials like wood, stone, mother of pearl, or horn. But besides that, look for buttons that are reinforced with extra stitching, and also make sure that the buttonholes are even and that there are no loose threads there. When it comes to coats, you can also look for buttons that are reinforced at the back with an additional button. This is also a sign of good craftsmanship. When it comes to zippers, most people recommend YKK as a good brand, but overall you should make sure that the zipper goes up and down smoothly without catching. And finally, in terms of patterns, you should always make sure that patterns align at the seams. Sometimes brands skip this step because it's not only more time consuming, but it also requires more fabric. So when you find a piece where the pattern aligns at the seams, then this is a good indicator of good quality. Some final tips that you can also take into consideration when looking for high quality pieces is to look for brands that are transparent about their production processes and their materials. If a brand is using high quality fabrics and techniques, they will want to disclose it. A good example of this would be Johnston's of Elgin. They do a great job at explaining what makes their cashmere special. I will link them down below. And well, that was it for today's video. I hope you found it useful. And if I missed anything or if you have any tips of your own, please share them down below so we can all learn. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.